Hi everybody. Hope everybody's staying healthy and safe. And this training's a little different. So this one doesn't really just for canines. This is for everybody. So let's say we have an autistic kid, and let's say our autistic kid got lost in this area, and he came. Last known location was this shed here. So a couple things that we're going to look at when we get here, right? We're going to first, what are we going to do? We're going to first maybe talk to whoever's seen him last. We're going to discover, okay, what's the level of autistic? You know, is he real high functional? Is he not? Has he done this before? All these typical questions we're going to ask. That's why we're going to make sure we use that autistic check sheet. We have an autistic check sheet and also a just standard lost person check sheet as well. And there are questionnaires. There's questions that we don't really think about, so it's important to fill those out and have somebody get on that as soon as possible. Those are underneath the website that you can print them out and keep them in your go bags. So when we get here, we're going to obviously do like a hasty search. So for the you that don't know those searches terms yet, a hasty search is something where we're just going to quickly go, maybe 2 or 3 people. We're going to scatter. We're going to check around all these buildings. We're going to check under trailers. Maybe check in open vehicles, check around the houses. We're going to do just general checks. Now there's no other houses around us right here, so this would be a pretty easy hasty search to complete because we can see pretty far distance here. Far distance is easy, but we do want to make sure we check underneath stuff and in stuff. These autistic children can really bury themselves and hide, and then when they do see us, they'll try to obviously run from us too. A lot of them will do too. So a couple other things we want to look here when we get on scene. You see down behind me here, we have a wood line, right? So this wood line, if we look through the wood line, every now and then we'll see a tractor trailer go by at a pretty high speed, and we can hear a little bit of highway in the background. So it's something to be concerned about, that autistic kids, a lot of them like tractors, a lot of them like big trucks, a lot of them like this stuff, so they could be geared to go to that direction. And that's a concern if we have Interstate 81 back here, an autistic kid going back to that area. So another good suggestion I would give is in that aspect is if we have some roving patrol, if there's another road between here and 81, that we put 1 or 2 vehicles back there in our roving patrol and drive that roadway back and forth to make sure that there's no maybe possible crossover. We want to do that fairly quickly because of how fast we can these children can go. The other thing that we don't know about is this woodline area right now. We can obviously see this is in a valley down here, and valleys generally hold what? Water most of the times. A lot of them will have it. So it's something to be concerned about. Now, since I know this area and I know this wood line, I know that there's not a whole lot of water up here at the beginning, enough to make your feet wet. But I know as you get down around that bend and down over the other side, it's definitely enough for a child to drown, if not even an adult, if we fall in it incorrectly and hit our heads. An adult could easily cross it. A child could cross it depending on how much rain that we had, but it flows pretty good sometimes, and it's actually pretty decently wide. It's probably 15, 20 feet wide down there at the widest spot. So that's where we need to make sure we're using our resources internally and externally. And what I mean by that is our fire departments, our local neighbors that are around that might come around. We don't want to exempt them from maybe helping us because they're excellent resources in this matter. People that might have hunted this wood line would be a great resource to use because they can tell us a little bit about it. They can tell us, is there water down there? And we can kind of focus on what's the most important that we need to check immediately, because maybe we don't always have a canine available for the first hour in an incident or half an hour. So we had to make that determination. Are we going to wait another half an hour for a dog? Are we going to make a go at it and start doing some quick grid searches and some quick area searches in that aspect? So that's something that we got to consider if we don't always have a dog. So we want to keep that in mind with woodline areas. Another thing that you probably see here behind me is this big metal tower that's holding these electric lines. So this is another big concern. A lot of times we get complacent with ourselves. I'll be the first one to say I know I've done it, where we look down and we kind of look across our lane because that's where we think you would walk, right? But some of these kids, they'll go right up that, you know, they'll crawl up that. The other thing that we want to pay attention to is even in the woods, when we're tracking through the woods or walking through the woods, we want to make sure we're looking up. We want to make sure, especially if it's a suicidal person, it's something that we definitely want to check. Unfortunately, we don't want to we don't want to find that, but that's what our jobs are, right? So we want to make sure we're looking up at the same point. And just keep in mind, even if we talked about autistic kids in this incident, but if we have a dementia patient, right? Dementia patients, what happens with them? They normally go back to old lifestyles, you know. So somebody that might have been an avid hunter, an avid walker, maybe had a tree stand or a tree house, you know, back in the day, and there's memories that trigger with that go back to these dementia patients, and they'll actually try to find that or go back to that type of environment. So we want to keep that in mind. Don't think a 70, 80, 90-year-old guy can't climb a tree, okay? Because it can happen, especially like tree stands, tree huts, forts, and things like that could be up in trees. We want to make sure we're checking those really carefully. And that's where the dogs come into effect. If you have a tracking dog that might have got us in an area and got a little confused or kind of lost the scent, and then we brought an air scent dog in behind that, and that air scent dog is still hitting heavily on that area, there's a good indication that means that person's up off the ground, because our tracking dog can't go to it, but the air scent dog's still hitting the pocket of human scent. So it's something to think about. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of training about just learning your surroundings, how to use some of your resources a little bit, and how to work with some autistic kids a little bit as well. Again, I can't go into too much in these. We'd be here for an hour, and we can't do that obviously on the video, but it at least gives us something to do and all have as a team to move forward and work together. I look forward to doing more stuff with you. Again, if you have any suggestions, type below, and I'll do whatever I can and give you the best advice that I can give you. Thanks everybody. Have a great day.